You probably think of yourself as like the captain of your own ship.
Right.
You look in the mirror, you tap your forehead, and you just assume that everything happening up in that dark, bony vault is pulling all the levers of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is what we've all been taught, really.
Exactly. Like if you feel anxious, you think, well, it's a brain thing. If you feel joyful, it's a brain thing.
Yeah.
But what if, and this is the entire mission of our deep dive today, what if you're actually just a walking, talking biological mech suit and you're piloted by trillions of microscopic bugs who are, actively dictating your every mood, your cravings, and your thoughts?
It is a profoundly massive paradigm shift.
Hmm.
I mean, we are essentially moving the locus of control entirely out of the skull and down into the abdomen.
Which is wild to even think about.
It really is, because if you look at the sheer numbers, human cells are vastly outnumbered by microbial cells in the body. You are, genetically and cellularly speaking, more bacteria than you are human.
Okay, that is exactly the terrifying but sort of beautiful reality we're unpacking today. We're exploring this hidden universe inside your stomach, the microbiome, and we're decoding the scientifically backed connection between your gut health and your mental wellness.
And it's a very real, very mechanical connection.
Right. And, there was this one line from the source material today that absolutely stopped me in my tracks. It said, "The only reason why we eat is to feed our bacteria. Our bacteria are what feeds us."
Yeah, that completely upends how we view nutrition, doesn't it?
Seriously.
Right.
I mean, I always thought I was eating for me.
Right, because when we consume a meal, we think of it as, extracting calories for our own muscle and brain function. But that is actually the secondary mechanism.
Is secondary.
Yes. The primary mechanism is that you are basically shoveling raw materials into a subterranean ecosystem. You are a host.
Wow.
You're providing substrate for trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, which then metabolize that food and secrete the chemical byproducts that actually run your biology.
Okay, let's unpack this microscopic metropolis because, it isn't just some generic factory down there. What really fascinated me is how specific this ecosystem is to the individual.
Oh, absolutely.
It's essentially a biological fingerprint, right? Like you could take two people, feed them the exact same diet, put them through the exact same workout routine, and their bodies will process those inputs entirely differently.
Completely differently.
Because the trillions of microbes doing the processing are completely different.
Exactly. And that fingerprint analogy goes pretty deep. But there is a key difference. I mean, a human fingerprint is static, right? You're born with it. It never changes.
Right.
But your microbiome is dynamic. It is this real-time, highly sensitive reflection of your environment. Every single choice you make, the fiber you just ate, the hours of sleep you got last night, even the air quality in your city or the soil your vegetables are grown in.
Wait, the soil too?
Yes, all of it. All of it is actively rewriting your biological blueprint on basically an hourly basis.
That is just mind-blowing.
It is. Because certain bacterial strains are blooming, they're multiplying by the billions, while others are dying off, just starved of their preferred fuel.
But hold on, if these microbes are so essential that they are literally managing our immune response and our brain health, and if their populations are constantly shifting based on what we feed them, who is actually making the dietary choices?
Ah, right.
Because if I suddenly get an overpowering, like almost manic craving for a massive plate of pasta, is that my brain desiring pasta? Or is that a specific colony of carb-living bacteria in my gut sitting in the control room of my mech suit, pulling the alarm and demanding lunch?
That is a brilliant and honestly slightly unnerving question, and evolutionary biology suggests it's the latter.
Seriously, they're in charge.
Well, think about it from their perspective. The bacteria in our gut have incredibly short lifespans. So when their preferred food source is scarce, they experience an immediate survival crisis.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they actually have the biochemical machinery to manipulate host behavior to ensure their own survival.
Wait. They manipulate us.
They do. They can alter our taste receptors. They can produce toxins that make us feel terrible until we eat what they want. Or conversely, they release chemical rewards when we comply.
Oh my gosh, so they're literally training us like Pavlov's dogs.
Basically, yes.
I eat the sugar-loving bacteria bloom. They release a tiny hit of some feel-good chemical, and my brain thinks, wow, I made a great choice. Let's do that again.
Exactly. That's the feedback loop.
I mean, we really have to shift from thinking, I am feeding myself, to realizing I am negotiating with a hostage taker.
Or more optimistically, you could say, I am cultivating an ecosystem.
I guess that sounds a bit better.
Right, because if you understand the mechanism, you can use it to your advantage. You can intentionally starve the pathogenic, sugar-craving bacteria and feed the beneficial, fiber-loving strains until that balance of power shifts.
Okay. But to your point about them pulling the levers in the brain, they can only do that if there's a direct line of communication to management, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it is an extraordinary piece of biological hardware called the gut-brain axis.
Yes, the information superhighway. Bidirectional communication. The brain talks to the gut talks to the brain.
Precisely.
And the primary physical cable running this entire network is the vagus nerve.
Yes, the vagus nerve is the star of the show here.
I'm picturing this nerve not just as like a tiny little thread, but as a massive high-speed fiber optic cable running straight down from the brainstem, branching out and wrapping itself completely around our digestive organs.
That is anatomically very accurate.
Oh.
Actually, the word vagus means wanderer in Latin.
Oh, because it wanders around the body.
Exactly. It wanders down from the brainstem, through the neck, the thorax, and deep into the abdomen. It touches the heart and lungs before just completely enveloping the digestive tract. It is the longest cranial nerve in the body.
Wow.
And it doesn't just passively monitor the gut. It is constantly transmitting action potential, electrical impulses, back and forth at lightning speed.
And what blew my mind in the sources is what is traveling along that fiber optic cable.
Okay.
We're talking about neurotransmitters.
Yes.
Dopamine, GABA, serotonin. I mean, anyone who has ever looked into mental health or psychiatry knows these names.
Very famous molecules.
Right. These are the chemicals we traditionally associate entirely with brain function. Like, if you're depressed, a psychiatrist gives you an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, to keep more serotonin in your brain.
Right, because the traditional, deeply entrenched view of psychiatry has been incredibly brain-centric.
Totally.
Mood disorders were seen almost exclusively as a chemical imbalance occurring between the synapses up in the cortex.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The showstopper. Up to 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. 90%, not in the brain, down in the abdomen.
It is staggering. It's manufactured by specialized cells in the lining of your intestines, which are constantly interacting with your microbiome.
What are those cells called again?
The enterochromaffin cells.
Right, the enterochromatin cells.
Yeah, they are these incredible sensory cells embedded in the gut epithelium. So your beneficial bacteria metabolize the food you eat, right?
Okay.
And they produce byproducts that directly stimulate these enterochromaffin cells to synthesize serotonin.
Wow.
So this isn't just some minor side operation. This is the primary manufacturing plant for the neurotransmitter that regulates your mood, your feelings of well-being, your sleep architecture, your appetite, all of it.
I mean, if 90% of our serotonin is made in the abdomen, treating clinical depression or anxiety exclusively by tweaking the brain, it's like complaining that a light bulb is flickering in your house, so you spend a decade taking apart the ceiling fixture, completely ignoring the fact that the massive power plant 10 miles away is under attack and failing to generate electricity.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and that is precisely the blind spot in modern neuropharmacology.
Really?
Yes. We have been trying to optimize the remaining 10% of serotonin up in the brain while largely ignoring the 90% production capacity in the gut.
That's crazy.
Now, to be clear, there's a nuance here. The serotonin produced in the gut doesn't physically cross the blood-brain barrier.
Wait, it doesn't?
No, it doesn't travel up into the skull as a molecule.
Then how does gut serotonin actually affect our mood? I thought that was the whole point.
This is where the mechanics are just so elegant. The gut serotonin acts locally.
Okay.
It stimulates the afferent fibers of the vagus nerve and tone. Those are the fibers sending signals up to the brain.
Ah, the fiber optic cable.
Right. So the gut serotonin creates an electrical signal that travels up the cable to the brainstem. And that signal prompts the brain to synthesize its own serotonin and alter our psychological state.
Oh, I see. So it's a signaling cascade.
Exactly. No gut serotonin means a very weak signal to the brain, which means a dark, anxious mood.
Wow, that makes the system even more complex. It relies on this perfectly functional translation between chemical production in the gut and electrical signaling up the nerve.
Which brings us to the real threat.
Right. What happens when the power plant gets damaged? When this massive metropolis of microbes falls into a state of what the researchers call dysbiosis.
Dysbiosis, yes. That is the breakdown of microbial balance.
So when things go wrong.
Exactly. It's when the beneficial protective bacteria are wiped out or outcompeted, and the pathogenic, harmful bacteria overgrow and dominate the ecosystem. And the consequences of that are terrifyingly mechanical.
Yeah, let's talk about the mechanics here, because dysbiosis isn't just about having an upset stomach. That's what I used to think. But it leads to a structural failure of the gut wall, intestinal permeability.
Also known as leaky gut.
Leaky gut, right.
To really understand leaky gut, you have to picture the physical architecture of your intestinal lining. It is astonishingly fragile.
How fragile.
In most areas, your gut wall is literally one cell thick.
Wait, just one cell thick?
Just a single microscopic layer of epithelial cells standing between the highly toxic bacteria-filled contents of your digestive tract and your otherwise sterile bloodstream.
That is wild. I mean, I feel like it should be as thick as a tire or something.
You think so, but no, it's incredibly thin to allow for nutrient absorption. And these single cells are stitched together by proteins.
Okay, so the cells are holding hands.
Exactly. We call those connections tight junctions. They're kind of like bouncers at an incredibly exclusive club, linking arms.
I love that. The bouncers.
Their only job is to inspect every single molecule floating by in the gut, let the good nutrients through the line into the VIP section, which is the bloodstream, and keep the pathogenic bacteria, the undigested food particles, and the toxins out.
Keep them out of the club.
Right. When your microbiome is healthy, those bouncers are strong. The tight junctions are ironclad. The barrier is totally secure. But when you introduce chronic, unrelenting stress, which, let's be honest, is basically the default state of modern life.
Oh, absolutely.
Your body pumps out cortisol and adrenaline. And over time, this chronic elevation of stress hormones physically alters the environment of the gut.
How so?
It changes gut motility, it decreases the protective mucus layer, and it directly triggers dysbiosis. The bad bacteria start to take over.
And when the bad bacteria take over, they start releasing their own toxins, right?
Yes. Specifically, things called endotoxins, like lipopolysaccharides, or LPS for short.
LPS, okay.
When these toxins build up, they signal those tight junctions to relax. The protein stitching comes undone.
Oh, no.
Basically, the bouncers get distracted and they let go of each other's arms.
And suddenly the club is breached, the wall becomes permeable, and now you have harmful bacteria, massive endotoxins, and undigested proteins literally leaking out of the digestive tract and directly into the bloodstream.
Yes, and your immune system is sitting right there waiting.
Because most of the immune system is in the gut, right?
Exactly. About 70% of your immune system is housed right alongside the gut, precisely because it is the primary border crossing.
That makes total sense.
So when the immune system detects these foreign invaders pouring into the blood, it sounds a massive alarm. It launches a huge inflammatory response. Macrophages rush in, cytokines are released, and you get systemic body-wide inflammation.
And this systemic inflammation doesn't just stay in the abdomen. That's the scariest part. It travels in the blood right up to the brain.
It does. Those inflammatory cytokines can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Wow.
And when they enter the brain, they activate what are called microglial cells. These are the brain's resident immune cells.
Okay, so the brain's immune system turns on.
Yes. And when microglia are activated, they basically put the brain into a state of sickness behavior.
Sickness behavior, what does that feel like?
They decrease neuroplasticity, they disrupt neurotransmitter synthesis, and they trigger the exact symptoms we historically diagnose as clinical depression, brain fog, and chronic anxiety.
Hold on, let me connect the dots here because we have a massive chicken or egg scenario forming. The research says chronic psychological stress alters the microbiome, which degrades the tight junctions, which causes leaky gut, which releases endotoxins into the blood, which triggers systemic inflammation, which activates microglial cells in the brain, which chemically causes the feeling of severe anxiety and depression.
You've got it.
So does the external stress cause the bad gut health, or does the physical gut leakage cause the psychological feeling of stress?
It is a devastating feedback loop. It is both.
Both.
An external stressor, say a high-pressure job or a traumatic event, initiates the damage to the gut. The damaged gut then leaks toxins, creating biological inflammatory stress up in the brain.
Okay.
The brain perceives this biological inflammation as a reason to feel profound anxiety, which causes it to release more cortisol, which then further damages the gut lining.
Wow. It's a self-perpetuating spiral of biological breakdown.
Exactly.
And when you look at how we typically treat someone suffering from severe anxiety today, we tell them to meditate, to change their thought patterns, to do cognitive behavioral therapy. We treat it as purely a psychological issue.
Right.
But if their tight junctions are literally unzipped and their brain is marinating in inflammatory cytokines from escaped gut bacteria, I mean, no amount of positive thinking is going to zip those tight junctions back up.
Precisely. We are essentially trying to blow away the smoke while completely ignoring the grease fire raging in the kitchen.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, cognitive behavioral therapy is phenomenal, but it cannot outthink systemic biological inflammation. You have to put out the fire in the gut.
Right.
And the really exciting part is that the scientific community is finally catching up to this reality. They're providing rigorous, peer-reviewed proof that we can manually intervene and rebuild this system.
Yeah, so what does this all mean? Let's get into the proof, because the source material brought actual receipts. We're not just theorizing here.
Not at all.
Stanford University's Longevity Center looked closely at this, and what they found wasn't just about reducing anxiety. It was about how bacteria physically build the capacity of our brain. They looked at brain plasticity and cognitive function.
Yes. Brain plasticity, or neuroplasticity, is the brain's ability to reorganize itself, to form new neural connections, and to adapt.
It's how we learn, right?
Exactly. It is the biological mechanism of learning, memory, and even recovery from trauma. And the Stanford research identified a very specific mechanism by which our gut microbes enhance this plasticity.
And that mechanism is the production of short-chain fatty acids.
Yes. Short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs.
I hear this term thrown around in nutrition circles a lot, but what is actually happening chemically? How does a fatty acid produced in the colon travel up to the brain and forge biological armor for a neuron?
It is a phenomenal process. When you consume dietary fiber, specifically the complex indigestible carbohydrates that your own human cells cannot break down.
Like from vegetables and stuff.
Yeah, right. Those complex fibers travel all the way through your digestive tract to your large intestine completely intact.
Okay.
Down there, your beneficial bacteria ferment that fiber. It is their food. And as a byproduct of this fermentation, they produce these short-chain fatty acids. The big three are acetate, propionate, and butyrate.
Butyrate, that's the rock star, right?
Butyrate is the absolute rock star of the gut. Once butyrate is produced in the colon, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream.
Okay.
And when it reaches the brain, it acts as what we call a histone decetylase inhibitor.
Okay. English translation for us, please.
Fair enough. In simple terms, it opens up the DNA in your brain cells, allowing them to express genes that promote growth and repair.
Oh, wow.
It directly increases the expression of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
BDNF, okay.
Think of BDNF as Miracle-Gro for your brain.
Miracle.
Yes. It stimulates the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus, which is your memory center. It lowers neuroinflammation. So the bacteria are literally fermenting the fiber you eat into a chemical compound that travels to the brain to physically bulk up your memory hardware.
That is staggering. So the bacteria are manufacturing the Miracle-Gro.
They are.
Which means if you don't feed them fiber, they don't produce the butyrate. The brain doesn't get the Miracle-Gro, neuroplasticity stalls, and cognitive decline accelerates.
Precisely. It's a direct supply chain. And this leads right into the second major study discussed in the sources from the journal Psychiatry Research.
Oh, yeah. This one was fascinating.
They didn't just look at fiber. They looked at what happens when you introduce specific live bacterial strains into the gut, probiotics.
Right.
They found that supplementing with specific strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium can clinically alleviate symptoms of depression and anxiety.
So wait. Instead of prescribing a chemical drug engineered in a lab to alter serotonin reuptake, they simply fed the patients specific strains of live bacteria, and it reduced their psychiatric symptoms.
Yes.
How do Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium actually do that?
They do it by actively modulating that gut-brain axis we just discussed. You see, Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium are prolific producers of GABA.
Gamma-aminobutyric acid.
Exactly. GABA is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It is the chemical that tells the nervous system to calm down, to stop panicking, to lower the heart rate.
The chill-out chemical.
Yes. So by introducing these live bacteria into the gut, you are essentially importing millions of tiny, microscopic GABA manufacturing plants.
Wow.
They produce the calming signals that travel up the vagus nerve and literally downregulate the brain's stress response.
You are importing a biological anti-anxiety factory. That is incredible.
It really is.
And that transitions perfectly to the third study from Nature Microbiology, because they zoomed out from specific strains, right, and they looked at the entire ecosystem.
They did.
And their conclusion revolved around one critical word: diversity. They found that individuals with a rich, highly diverse microbiome had a drastically lower likelihood of depression and possessed much higher mental resilience.
Mental resilience is the key phrase here. It's not just about not being depressed. It is the ability to endure a psychological or physiological stressor without your biological systems collapsing.
Right. Bouncing back.
Exactly. And the science shows that resilience is directly correlated with how many different types of microbes you harbor.
I like to think of your gut like a landscape.
Okay.
If you eat a standard modern diet, highly processed, repetitive, low fiber, your gut is basically a monoculture farm, just endless acres of corn. And a monoculture is extremely fragile. One bad storm or one course of antibiotics or one massive stressful event and the entire crop is wiped out. The soil dies.
That's a perfect visualization.
Yep.
But if your gut is diverse, it acts more like a thriving ancient rainforest.
Right.
You have thousands of different species of bacteria, fungi, and archaea. They occupy different niches, they metabolize different compounds, they support each other in incredibly complex symbiotic webs.
So they protect each other.
Exactly. If a pathogen enters that rainforest, it can't really gain a foothold because every single inch of biological real estate is already occupied by a strong native species.
A diverse microbiome is literally biological armor.
Yes.
And, if we're talking about building resilience through targeted environmental stressors, that perfectly bridges the gap to this massive pivot in the research that kind of surprised me.
Ah, the cold water therapy.
Yes. The sudden inclusion of cold water therapy, like doing a cold plunge, it seems like a total left turn from talking about gut bugs.
It seems like it, but conceptually it is identical.
I mean, you see people jumping into these freezing plunges, engaging in what looks to me like pure masochistic punishment.
It does look intense.
And the research points out that cold plunging soothes sore muscles, boosts energy, improves mental clarity, supports immune function, and radically enhances mood. But chemically, I don't get it. Why does shocking your body with 39-degree water do the exact same thing as diversifying your gut microbiome?
Because it operates on the profound biological principle of hormesis.
Hormesis.
Yes. Hormesis is the concept that a brief, intermittent, controlled exposure to stress actually stimulates the body's repair and strengthening mechanisms.
So the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is literally coded into our biology.
Exactly. When you submerge yourself in freezing water, it is a massive shock. Your skin's thermal receptors are screaming at your brain you were in a life-threatening environment.
Right, you feel like you're dying.
So your body dumps a massive surge of norepinephrine and epinephrine into the bloodstream to prepare for survival.
Your heart rate spikes. You start gasping for air.
Yes, but here is where the magic happens. To prevent you from hyperventilating and totally panicking, your body has to engage the parasympathetic nervous system to regain control.
Okay.
And what is the primary driver of the parasympathetic nervous system?
Oh, the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yeah.
You are manually exercising the exact same fiber optic cable that connects your gut to your brain.
Wow.
You are training the vagus nerve to fire powerfully under stress. This increases your vagal tone.
Vagal tone.
Yes. A high vagal tone means your body is incredibly efficient at returning to a state of calm after a stressor. And doing this also triggers the release of cold shock proteins, like RBM3, which are profoundly neuroprotective and actually help clear out cellular waste in the brain.
So let me get this straight. Challenging the internal environment of the gut with diverse, complex fibers builds resilience from the inside out.
Yes.
And challenging the external environment of the skin with freezing water builds resilience from the outside in.
Precisely. Both are waking the biological system up.
Which makes a lot of sense when you realize that we are basically living in a modern comfort crisis.
The comfort crisis is absolutely the root of the problem. Human biology evolved in environments of profound challenge.
We were constantly stressed.
Right, but in natural ways. We had to digest incredibly tough, fibrous, wild foods. We had to survive freezing winters and scorching summers. Our immune systems and nervous systems require those environmental frictions to stay sharp.
But now, we sit in 72-degree climate-controlled rooms all day. We eat hyper-processed, pre-digested foods that basically melt on our tongues and require absolutely zero microbial effort to break down.
We have removed all the natural friction.
Yeah.
And as a result, our internal ecosystems are becoming fragile, sluggish, and easily overrun. We are robbing our biology of the signals it needs to stay resilient.
We really are. And unfortunately, the absence of natural stress isn't the only problem. The modern world isn't just too comfortable, it is actively hostile to our microbiome.
It's a war zone down there.
The research lays out this hit list of microbiome assassins, these elements of modern life that are just systematically carpet bombing our internal rainforests. Let's break down these assassins, starting with diet.
Okay.
What exactly is destroying the rainforest? We know high sugar and processed foods are bad, right? We've heard that a million times. But what is the mechanical destruction happening in the gut?
It is about feeding the pathogens and stripping the defenses. When you consume high amounts of refined carbohydrates and artificial sweeteners, you are providing the perfect, rapid-burning fuel for the most harmful strains of bacteria and yeast, like Candida.
Oh, Candida. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Right. They rapidly multiply and outcompete the slow-growing beneficial bacteria. But it gets worse. Processed foods are packed with chemical emulsifiers.
Emulsifiers, those are the ingredients designed to keep oils and water mixed together on a shelf, right?
Exactly. So the food doesn't separate in the packaging.
Right.
But what do you think emulsifiers do inside your gut?
I don't know, they keep digesting.
They act like detergent.
Detergent.
Yes. They strip away the protective mucus layer lining your intestinal wall. They literally wash away the barrier that keeps the bacteria separated from your epithelial cells, which massively accelerates that leaky gut process we talked about earlier.
It's like pouring acid rain directly onto the ecosystem. That is horrifying.
It is.
But as destructive as diet can be, the medical category of assassins in this research is truly sobering. The primary weapon of mass destruction in the gut is undeniably antibiotics.
Antibiotics are a miracle of modern medicine, let's be clear about that. They have saved millions of lives.
Absolutely.
But from the perspective of the microbiome, taking a broad-spectrum antibiotic is a biological wildfire.
Right, because it just kills everything.
Yes, it does not differentiate between the pathogenic bacteria causing your sinus infection and the vital butyrate-producing bacteria that are forging the armor for your brain. It carpet bombs the entire landscape.
So it kills the invasive weeds, but it absolutely incinerates the old-growth forest at the same time.
Exactly.
And while the weeds bounce back really quickly, that old-growth forest takes months, sometimes even years to regrow. Some specific strains may never recover, right?
Which is why the medical consensus is shifting dramatically toward profound caution. Antibiotics must be used precisely only when absolutely necessary for bacterial infections, never for viral infections, and always alongside a robust strategy for microbial rehabilitation afterward.
Right. You can't just drop the bomb and walk away. But what if the listener really needs an antibiotic? We're not saying don't take them.
No, of course not. Follow your doctor's instructions to save your life or clear a dangerous infection. But you have to actively rebuild the gut immediately.
Okay, that's good advice. But the list of medical assassins doesn't stop at antibiotics. It highlights two over-the-counter staples that almost everyone has in their medicine cabinet right now.
NSAIDs and PPIs.
Yes. NSAIDs like ibuprofen and PPIs, the proton pump inhibitors people take for heartburn, how are these damaging the gut?
Let's look at NSAIDs first. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs work by inhibiting enzymes called COX-1 and COX-2.
Okay.
This is great for reducing a headache, but those same enzymes are responsible for producing prostaglandins, which are compounds that stimulate the production of the protective mucus in your stomach and intestines.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. When you block them, the mucus layer thins out, directly leading to increased intestinal permeability and even microscopic bleeding.
So you take a pill to fix a headache, and you inadvertently unzip the tight junctions in your gut, potentially creating systemic inflammation that causes more headaches down the line.
Exactly. It's a terrible trade-off.
What about the PPIs?
Proton pump inhibitors completely alter the pH of your stomach. They shut down stomach acid production.
Right, to stop the heartburn.
But stomach acid isn't just there to digest food. It is a critical defensive barrier. It acts as an acid bath that kills pathogenic bacteria from your mouth and your environment before they can reach the delicate ecosystem of your lower intestines.
So it's like a moat around a castle.
Yes. When you turn off the acid to cure your heartburn, you are lowering the drawbridge. You allow oral and environmental bacteria to flood into the colon, colonize areas they shouldn't be in, and trigger severe dysbiosis.
We are essentially dismantling our biological security systems in exchange for short-term comfort.
We really are.
And this brings us to the final category of assassins: lifestyle. We've talked extensively about the devastating impact of chronic stress, but the other massive lifestyle destroyer mentioned in the sources is poor sleep.
Sleep is the foundational bedrock of optimal health, and the microbiome is incredibly sensitive to it. Your gut bacteria actually have their own circadian rhythms. They operate on a biological clock just like you do.
Wait. The bacteria know what time it is?
They absolutely do.
How is that possible? They don't have eyes.
No, but they respond to your melatonin production, your eating windows, and your core body temperature changes. So when you disrupt your sleep, whether through shift work or doom scrolling late at night or just chronic insomnia, you throw the entire microbial ecosystem into chaos.
And think about the behavioral cascade this triggers. When you get terrible sleep, your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of the brain, is totally impaired.
Yes.
While your amygdala, the emotional center, is hyperactive. So you wake up exhausted, stressed, and your brain immediately demands quick energy.
So you reach for the refined carbohydrates and the massive hit of sugar.
Exactly. Which then feeds the pathogenic bacteria, causing a bloom of dysbiosis. The pathogenic bacteria release endotoxins that strip the mucus layer and cause leaky gut.
And then the leaked endotoxins cross the barrier into the bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation.
The inflammation reaches the brain, causing massive spikes in biological anxiety and stress.
And because you are now flooded with stress hormones and neuroinflammation, you lie awake in bed that night, completely unable to sleep, starting the entire terrifying cycle all over again.
It is a biological death spiral.
It is a profound compounding crisis, which really begs the ultimate question.
Yes, how do we interrupt the spiral? How do we stop dropping bombs on the ecosystem and start rebuilding the rainforest from the soil up?
Luckily, we have answers.
We do. The research gives us a highly actionable, mechanical master plan to heal the gut-brain axis. It is not vague advice. It is a concrete playbook. And step one, obviously, is diet.
Yes, we have to feed the good guys.
And this is where we really have to clarify one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern nutrition, the difference between probiotics and prebiotics.
It is such a critical distinction. Most people just buy probiotics and think they're done.
Right, so what's the difference?
Probiotics are the live organisms themselves. When you consume probiotics, you are literally swallowing billions of live, beneficial bacteria in hopes that some survive the stomach acid and colonize your lower intestine.
Okay.
You can get these in supplement form or, much more robustly, through fermented foods.
Yeah.
High-quality yogurt, kefir, unpasteurized sauerkraut, kimchi, and kombucha.
So if your gut is a barren plot of dirt, probiotics are the grass seeds. You are scattering new life onto the soil. But here is the massive catch that the research emphasizes. Seeds cannot grow on dry concrete.
No, they cannot.
You cannot just drop bacteria into a hostile, starving environment and expect them to thrive. They will just pass right through you and die. You must provide prebiotics.
Prebiotics are the food for the microbes. They are specific types of non-digestible fibers and polyphenols that bypass human digestion completely.
What foods have prebiotics?
Things like raw garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, slightly green bananas, and chicory root.
So if probiotics are the grass seeds, prebiotics are the fertilizer and the water that actually ensure they grow.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Taking an incredibly expensive 50 billion CFU probiotic capsule every morning while eating a diet of processed meat and refined sugar is a complete waste of money.
Because the bacteria arrive in the colon, find absolutely nothing to eat, starve to death, and are just flushed out.
Exactly. You have to feed the bacteria once they arrive. The synergy between the two is what we call the symbiotic effect.
Symbiotic. With a Y.
Right. You introduce the live culture, and you simultaneously flood the environment with a specific fibrous substrate they need to metabolize into those neuroprotective short-chain fatty acids we discussed earlier.
Okay, so the dietary foundation is set. We are planting the seeds and watering them. The playbook then moves to lifestyle, and it explicitly lists exercise as a major gut healer.
Yes, exercise is huge.
I have to admit, when I first read this in the sources, I was totally baffled. How does me lifting weights or going for a jog physically change the bacteria in my large intestine?
It is a beautiful example of crosstalk between bodily systems. When you exercise, your contracting muscles act as an endocrine organ.
Really? Muscles act like glands?
Yes. They release signaling molecules called myokines into the bloodstream. These myokines travel down to the gut and actually stimulate the growth of specific beneficial bacteria, like Akkermansia mucinifera.
Okay, Ackerman.
It's a superstar strain responsible for thickening that protective mucus layer and sealing up leaky gut. Furthermore, Cardiovascular exercise increases blood flow to the digestive tract and enhances gut motility, the mechanical squeezing of the intestines.
Which keeps things moving.
Right,
Yeah.
which prevents bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine.
So your macroscopic muscles are literally sending chemical text messages down to the microscopic bacteria, telling them, hey, the host is active, the host is hunting, the host is thriving, so you need to thrive too.
Exactly.
That is unbelievable, and to balance that activity, the playbook demands a rigorous approach to sleep.
We discussed how disruptive poor sleep is. The intervention here is to forcefully synchronize your biological clocks,
How do we do that?
aimed for 7 to 9 hours. But more importantly, maintain strict consistency. Go to bed and wake up at the exact same time every single day, including weekends. This locks in the circadian rhythm of your microbiome.
The research also gives environmental instructions, like keeping the bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. But the most critical rule, the one I think everyone struggles with, is completely eliminating screen time before and in bed.
Because the blue light, emitted by screens, suppresses your brain's natural melatonin production.
Right.
And remember, your gut bacteria are listening for that melatonin signal to know it's time to shift from digestive mode into repair and maintenance mode.
Oh, wow. So if you are staring at a phone, the melatonin never arrives.
Exactly. The bacteria stay active, the gut lining isn't repaired, and the glymphatic system in your brain, the mechanism that literally flushes out neurotoxins while you sleep, cannot operate efficiently.
You are basically blinding your biology to the natural rhythms of the planet.
You are.
And lastly, the simplest, most fundamental rule of the whole playbook: hydration. Drink enough water to keep the system moving.
Yes. Without water, the fiber you just ate turns to concrete, motility halts, and the ecosystem stagnates.
Okay, so if we synthesize this entire master plan, we can construct what a scientifically optimized, perfect, gut-friendly day looks like.
Let's paint that picture. It's actually very achievable.
Okay, so we wake up naturally after 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep in a completely dark, cool room. Our melatonin cycles are perfectly aligned.
You immediately hydrate, signaling to the gastrointestinal tract that the day has begun. You manage the initial cortisol spike of the morning, not with immediate panic about your emails, but with a few minutes of deep, diaphragmatic breathwork.
Engaging the vagus nerve and signaling safety to the tight junctions in your gut.
Exactly. Then, maybe you step into a freezing cold shower or a cold plunge. You shock the system, triggering that massive norepinephrine release, building vagal tone, and flooding the body with anti-inflammatory cold shock proteins.
Your first meal is rich in complex prebiotic fibers, a massive diversity of plants, asparagus, legumes, onions, giving your microbiome the precise substrate it needs to start churning out butyrate and brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
And you pair that with a potent probiotic source, perhaps a serving of raw sauerkraut or a high-quality kefir to introduce fresh, live strains to the ecosystem.
Then in the afternoon, you engage in intense physical exercise. Your contracting muscles release myokines that travel to your gut, stimulating the Akkermansia bacteria to thicken your intestinal mucus layer.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And as the evening approaches, you drastically reduce your exposure to artificial blue light. You allow your brain to naturally produce melatonin.
And this chemical signal cascades down to your microbiome, telling the trillions of organisms to begin their nightly repair sequence, sweeping out toxins and sealing up the gut wall.
It is a breathtakingly holistic approach to human performance.
It really is. I mean, you are not just trying to force your brain to be happy through sheer willpower. You are engineering the biological environment where happiness, resilience, and mental clarity are the automatic natural byproducts of a thriving ecosystem.
We have journeyed incredibly far today. We moved from the illusion of the brain as the solitary captain of the ship down into the microscopic metropolis of the microbiome.
We unraveled the anatomy of the vagus nerve and the reality that the vast majority of our serotonin is manufactured in the dark, winding corridors of our intestines.
And we looked at the terrifying mechanical breakdown of leaky gut, how stress and emulsifiers basically unzip the bouncers, allowing endotoxins to flood the bloodstream, triggering the microglial cells in our brain to create the sensation of profound depression.
We looked all the microbiome assassins in the eye, from broad-spectrum antibiotics to the sleep deprivation spiral.
But we also illuminated the path back. The Stanford, Nature, and Psychiatry research showing that through the tactical application of prebiotics, probiotics, cold exposure, and exercise, we can actively cultivate neuroplasticity and forge an impenetrable biological armor of mental resilience.
Yeah. And as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final philosophical implication of all this science that I think is the most profound takeaway of all.
Oh, Let's say.
Well, we established early on that your microbiome is entirely unique to you, like a dynamic fingerprint, right?
We did.
And we just spent the last hour proving mechanically, biologically, and scientifically that this specific bacterial ecosystem heavily dictates your mood, your anxiety levels, your neuroplasticity, and your cognitive function.
That is the undeniable reality of the gut-brain axis, yes.
Therefore, if you intentionally change your diet, your sleep, and your environment to alter your microbiome, you aren't just changing your digestive comfort or your physical weight. You are fundamentally rewiring the hardware that generates your consciousness.
That's a profound way to look at it.
If your microbiome dictates your mood and cognition, then changing your diet is literally the act of changing your personality. Every single bite of food you take, every hour of sleep you prioritize, is a biological vote for the kind of mind, the kind of resilience, and the kind of human you want to be tomorrow.
You are the architect of your own reality, but the bricks you build with are microscopic.
You are not just feeding a stomach. You are feeding the trillions of microscopic architects that build your reality. Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Keep learning, keep adapting, and please, go feed your good bacteria.